You're listening to Rock Solid People, a podcast by Max King.
The harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph.
So welcome, listeners, to another episode of Rock Solid People, where I, Max King, the CEO of Ozcare Support, interview interesting people in the disability space. And today, I'm very pleased to have with me Cassandra Day, Cassie Day, the CEO and founder of The Carers Place. Welcome, Cassie.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. This has been a while coming, but we're super pumped. And this has been one of the more challenging ones to sit down with, but you have every good reason to be here. Now, Cassie, quick question. I guess that is the question. Why did we? How did we end up here? What has brought us to being here together? Can you tell us a bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, sure. So I am a mum first and foremost. I'm a carer and I'm a business owner as well. And I run the Carers Place. But way back when I started my career, I started in government and in human resources and worked in team leader, management and recruitment way back then and spent 16 years there. But during that time, I had 2 children and my eldest was born with cystic fibrosis. He's 20 years old now. I'm not quite sure how I have a 20-year-old, but here we are. And, I guess, I thought, we were going to probably have difficulty and perhaps lose him through cystic fibrosis, but the world had different ideas for me. The universe had different ideas for me. And when he was 9 years old, he fell out of a tree and sustained very serious injuries and an ABI, so an acquired brain injury. And that really kind of turned my life and our lives on its head. Yep. And from there, within sort of 6 months of him having his accident, I really needed to turn very much into a full-time carer. I needed to leave work. I had to, navigate this new world that we were living in. And my marriage fell apart. I didn't have the same appreciation and passion for my work that I did before. I needed to do more. There was more to do in the world. And within 12 months, I'd left my secure employment. I had retrained as a personal trainer and started my own business to try and, I guess, support people in a more meaningful way. And I've always known that I'm here to help people and I just didn't quite know how. And so I started that business, which was kind of good and it boomed very quickly. I was full within 3 weeks, wow. Which is outrageous. I know it's just absolutely crazy. And I ran that from my home and it was good for a little while. But Matthew became quite sick again and I just wasn't able to sustain that. And so I took 12 months off. I had to let my business go, which was somewhat devastating, but there's always, lessons and reasons. And at least I sort of knew that. So I ended up looking for ways I could possibly help people on a much broader scale that didn't require me to be, at a specific spot at a specific time. And I fell into online business and I created The Carers Place, going through what am I good at? What do I know to be true? And how do other people look at me? And I've always been told uncomfortably I'm an inspiration and I've always been there to help people. And so I actually just stepped into that and created an online Facebook group that was just really for people to connect and share stories and help each other through some of the tough stuff. And that's really my purpose is around, making things just that little bit easier for people, maybe sharing lessons that I've learned along the way. So they can live less stressful lives. So I created this online business. I built this website. I had no idea what I was doing, not tech savvy. It's not, tech savvy and Cassie aren't 2 words that you put together. But I did it and I fumbled my way through as I do. And I created an online program for carers and it was all about self-care and advocating for themselves and creating, an environment in which they can function and give the best of them to whether it's their children or their loved one. And the reason I did that was because I knew that when I was the best in myself, when I was nurturing myself, looking after myself, that my kids, and Matthew in particular, was better too, because I've gone through a big tumultuous kind of journey with health. And so I built that. And that was a 9-week program, and Carers SA purchased 16 places for carers across South Australia to be able to do that program. Lots of great feedback, but it was very much based on having to go for grants, and I don't like asking for money. I have a real problem with that.
And they're frustrating. I don't know if you've ever been successful, but I haven't been, and they're very frustrating.
No.
So I hear that.
I don't like it. And I also don't like asking people who I know are extraordinarily vulnerable for money. I know as a carer myself that I'm always going to put my kid first, and I'm always going to fork out for my child before I will for myself. So I kind of thought, how am I going to flip this on its head? How can I help and support carers and families, but also support the person with a disability? Enter the NDIS, and I did a lot of research. Lots and lots of people for a long time had sort of said, you need to do support coordination. This is what you do anyway, and you're doing it for free. And, I had a lot of resistance. I was very scared, very worried, wasn't good enough, all of the enoughs. However, my very first client that I didn't know was going to be my first client reached out to me via a private message 4 years ago this month and said, Cassie, do you do support coordination? I said, give me 48 hours and I'll get back to you. And the rest is history. I basically got here today. So we're 4 years down the track and have some exceptional employees, but I established my business from there.
Yep.
And
And so the carers place has morphed and changed then.
Yes.
It started, as you say, as that fundamental online training tool for carers, as you say, to self and sort of look after yourself. So therefore you can be the best person to look after the people that you're caring for. And then you've morphed in there now. Is there is that the caring and the caring for carers is that there's still obviously a fundamental part of what you do and what your website does? Is the online course still running? Is there I'm going to spruik your business here, but can we act?
Yeah, no. It's absolutely okay. It's actually brilliant timing. So it's infused in everything we do. So everything that I created back then is still infused into what we do. And so we very much have a focus not only on our participants, but on their entire family units. But we're taking it one step further this year. So there are some materials on the website, and the website is currently being rebuilt. So there's, in this current website that I have, there is so much in the background that's just not being used or shared with people. So that will come this year, but we're actually launching into a couple of new programs, and one new program is very much about relationships, family unification, education, and sustainability. And so we've done, I guess, a number of pilots with some of our participants here, where, if we're only tunnel visioned and we're only focusing on the participant and not the environment and the environment in which they live and their relationships and their support, we're kind of almost marking time, because they don't live in silos. We don't live in silos. And so if we can actually address what's going on for everybody in that family unit and be able to really support them to be better together, I think we're going to have so much more success. And, I broke up with my children's father when they were very, very young. And that has a lot to do with living this life of disability and caring and all of those things. And I would really love to be able to change that. Nationwide, and who knows, the world.
Yeah, so that's interesting you say that, and I think fundamentally you've really hit the nail on the head. We often are focused on participants. That's who we get. Participant has a plan. We look at their outcomes, their goals, but actually, some of the most challenging instances that we've had have been when actually it's the unwritten it's the family members that
Yeah.
self-sabotage or sabotage.
Yeah.
It's the politics that you have to play to achieve the outcomes because there's other people. It's really fundamental. And in fact, one of the podcasts that I previously just done with Meredith Coote, who is now working in the circles of community circles, which is exactly that, looking at the full community around an individual, family, neighbors, community, and about how we as paid support can be the last of that rung. We should be the last things thought of, but using a technology platform. So I'll definitely introduce the two of you, but that's super exciting that you've identified that, because as you say, sometimes I think we're just too blinkered.
Yeah, we are. There is so much unrecognised and undiagnosed trauma, not only for our participants, but family members as well. And if anyone is like me, my experience is extremely isolating. So when Matthew was born, he was obviously born with cystic fibrosis. But people with cystic fibrosis can't connect. They can't see each other because of risk of cross-infection. And so we didn't have social media back then.
Right.
And so I actually was very, very isolated, and I only knew what I was told by the doctors. I wasn't supported by a social worker. There was no supports in place for us at all, and we just didn't know what was going on. And we had a number of traumatic events that have happened between then and now, and they shape who we are, how we behave, how we interact with each other, and those things can get in the way. And it's not because we're bad people, it's because we've been conditioned or what have you. And so if we can get in and support people in those early stages, we're going to have much better relationships and much better outcomes across the board. It's not about teaching people, how to care or, how to be a best parent. They already know that it's already instinctive in so many people, but it's actually giving people the tools to be able to come through these difficult circumstances in a much better, more holistic and healthier way.
Absolutely. And connected way, as you say. I mean, and sometimes I think social media is a boon, but it's also a curse. It's sort of, I'm sure you've experienced that.
Agree.
But I'm going to just rewind a little bit on our conversation here. And I'd like to just talk to you about the NDIS. It's one of the things that I'm really keen about. I mean, for me, as I explained to you before we started the podcast, I came into this from outside of the disability space. And for me, the NDIS predominantly has been an exceptionally good thing for most of the people that we support. I'd like your view on the NDIS, and I don't want to bag it out, but I'm happy to take some pot shots at it if you want.
Look, sometimes it's a necessary evil, but the concept is extraordinary, and I really buy into that. But what I will say is this, is when Matthew transitioned onto the NDIS from a state-based system, and he was on the NDIS because of his acquired brain injury, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no support whatsoever, and my head was firmly in the sand. For 2 years, we didn't use his plan at all because I didn't know what to do. Yep. And, we got this plan and nothing was explained to us. We were self-managed. I didn't know what I was doing. We just marked time. But this is also because I was engaged in a state-based system that actually didn't step up and support us at all. So there was no transition.
Yeah.
And I thought, jeepers, if I can't navigate a system like this, if I can't do it for myself, how on earth are people who are vulnerable, who are compromised, how are they going to be able to do it? I'm, a relatively smart person. Yep. I'm educated. Yep. I've navigated the health system and a whole host of other things. So that's where it started. And I did not know the potential of the NDIS whatsoever. And what I did was I learnt it for other people, so then I could end up helping myself and my son essentially in the first place. So I've come at it from a very different perspective. A lot of people who enter into it these days are relatively savvy and know about it and what the purpose is. So for me, I think the NDIS is an exceptional scheme. However, it's not used to its in full potential or And I think there's a lot of bureaucracy and BS that really does get in the way, and we see that every day. And, I think the potential is huge for the NDIS, but look, ask me questions specifically about it and we can talk for days, honestly.
Well, I've got one question, which is, so that experience that you had coming into it, as you say, as a smart person, savvy, what is the solution then? And I don't know if this is on a national level or on a thin markets basis or on a smaller basis. And for us, we support individuals. So you want to come to us, we'll support. We've put a figure on it: 25 individuals to transition onto the scheme that have no current plan, and we're going to do that on a pro bono basis. And the number was just that we wanted to help some people, and we didn't know where to sort of start. So I said to my team, reach out to anybody you know that wants to get onto the scheme and can't. Well, that's a small step. I know that you offer some free resources and some other. What's the solution here, though? Because we struggle to find people that actually know even that we're offering that service.
Correct. I think it's word of mouth, and it's being out and being active in your community, and also being close to community, whether it's local councils, whether it's local MPs, and actually being very present and being willing to share your lessons and what you've learned and the information without expectation of getting anything back for it. I think that certainly if people are, have their first plan on the NDIS, I think it's absolutely critical that support coordination is included in that plan. I just cannot fathom how many people are on the NDIS and they have their first plans and they have no support coordination. They're not afforded anything. And the notion of having 6 or 12 hours in a first plan is absolutely offensive in relation to, like, 6 or 12 hours of support coordination in a plan is absolutely offensive when the purpose of support coordination is to build capacities, to teach and learn and guide and support people to understand an extraordinarily complex scheme and how it applies to them. So, we, and you would be the same. We would see people who might have been on the scheme for 4 years or 6 years and they haven't used support coordination, or they've had a really bad experience and they've come along to us, and where they think they know, but they've been really misled or misguided, or haven't actually, okay, well, here's buckets of money, let's go and spend that. And it all has to be clinical. It all has to be, we do weekly physio and we do weekly OT and we do weekly, this therapy and that therapy. But actually people don't understand it's about the person's life and where they're going. So I think that there are so many layers to address this, and it's people like you and I being able to get out there and share our experiences. And I guess that's one big thing this year. I've kind of been hiding for the last 4 years, but for me this year is very much about, connection with other people in the community, getting out there and helping people, whether it's online or face-to-face. But the more of us who can spread the word without expectation and who can, really collaborate, that's a big goal for me this year, is collaborate with other providers, with mainstream services. So like health here in South Australia, I don't know what it's like in New South Wales, but they don't have any idea of the NDIS and the scheme. Our government systems do not talk to each other at all. And it's, and for us, building relationships with health and with education and with other government organisations to really upskill them so that we can actually work together to get the best outcomes for everybody is going to be a big thing for us this year. And I think for the sector as a whole, we need to do that, because quite honestly, if anyone knows in health or education, they've got an NDIS plan, that's the NDIS's problem.
Yeah.
And that's really the attitude.
Yeah. It's definitely a missed opportunity there, I think, with the NDIS when it was originally established, that siloed nature. And I think, obviously the complexities of information technology systems aside, I get that they've got some legacy systems. It was a missed opportunity and a real shame there. I've had some interesting conversations again around support coordination. I still fundamentally believe that is the single most important thing in the NDIS to make it a success. And of course, we see the value in that. You see the value, and you see the grassroots effect that a good support coordinator can have to the success or otherwise of a client's experience with the NDIS. And as you say, it is. Now that we're getting plans that come back, or first plans without support coordination, just go, well, how are they supposed to do it? How are they supposed to navigate? But
because you've seen the plans, and if you look at a plan for the first time, you're like, improve relationships? What does that mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, the lexicon of the NDIS still baffles me, to be honest with you. Look, you've obviously you're wearing a lot of hats here. You're a mum, business owner, a carer, entrepreneur, and one of the things that this podcast tries to do is sort of to elicit some advice from those people who are successful and who wear many hats. I mean, obviously you've got some challenges with time and everything else. As we know, we've struggled to sit down and have this podcast, and thank you so much for joining me. It's been amazing. What's your advice to other people to juggle work, life, family?
I guess I don't know about advice, but I can probably share a few gold nuggets if you like.
Love it. Please do.
Lessons. So, we've got the old sort of look after yourself, put yourself first. But I don't mean in a token way. I mean, really get in touch with what it is that you need, because like we said before, when you're better, everyone is better. And it's okay. So many of us carry so much guilt, and it's just making sure that you do feature in your own life, that you're not just marking time or just so busy being busy that you're kind of forgotten. And I think we use that in a lot of our intakes, and when we work with a lot of people, what makes you feel alive? What lights you up inside? Let's start there, because everything else will flow. Bring that into your life.
Wonderful.
It might be, going down to the beach, or, it might be reading a book, or whatever it is. That's okay. It doesn't have to be everything about diet and lifestyle or whatever else, I guess, value your own experience. And, if you're looking to be a carer and move back into the workforce or whatever, actually value who you are, your experience, and what you've got to offer the world. I didn't think anyone would want to employ me. I didn't think I had any skills, but I actually had a lot, and I proved that. But strong boundaries and allowing balance, and balance, is going to change day to day. What's balance for me today is going to be different to next week, but it's allowing yourself to have that balance, but also have strong boundaries. So I used to have and I probably still do, to be fair, have a real problem with saying no to someone. So as parents, carers, business owners, everyone's asking us of something. Can you do this? Can you do that? And instead of saying no, I guess a great reframe is saying yes to yourself first, and being able to let yourself off the hook for that. So rather than you feeling guilty because you can't meet everybody's needs, saying yes to yourself first, and then you can look outside of that. And I think accepting help, I'm really bad at this. Have been for a really long time, but accepting help, no matter how small. We don't have to do everything for ourselves. There's no medals at the end of the day, for you if you're trying to do everything yourself, and you're going to end up burnt out. And if you're burnt out, you're actually no good to anybody. And so accepting help is super important, but sometimes, particularly when we're in the thick of things, we don't quite know what that help is and what it looks like for us. For example, we've been in hospital with Matthew for the last couple of months. He's been extremely sick, and people will extend messages and with good intent to say, how can we help you? let us know if you need anything. But when you're in that situation, you don't know what it is you need. And so I'd invite everybody that when they're not in a stressful situation, and when you have a retrospective look at, some of the tough times in your life, perhaps write down some of the things that you could have really used a bit of help with. So it might be, someone cooking your meals, or it might be, picking up your children, or just coming over and mowing your lawns, or whatever it is, those practical things. And then when you're in a crisis phase, you don't have to think about it because it's already there written down, just those sorts of things. But accepting help is so critical.
Yeah. Wow. And that's an amazing thing to think about. I was just thinking, yeah, exactly that. If you are in a stressful situation, you can't think, can you? But if you've already thought about it in the past and you've written it down, and things like mowing the lawn, as you say, you get home and it sort of stresses you out out. It could just be a simple thing that just gets done.
It's just a simple thing. And it is hard to accept that help. But it's okay. And it's okay to take a deep breath and just say thank you. You don't need to say no. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And, I joked, I got my son a gift while he was in hospital, and it was something that I really wanted to get him. And he's like, oh, no, I'll give you the money back. I'll pay you the money back. I'm like, Matthew, it's okay. It's actually more about me than you. When you give, you actually feel really good. So it's not about you. It's about me. So please accept it. Another good reframe.
Well, I think Matthew's very lucky to have you as a mum, and the rest of us are very lucky that you took that plunge into the carer's place and have created this specialist support coordination. For those people that want to get in touch, I'm just going to wrap up now with some contact details. So the website address is
www.thecarersplace.com.au.
And telephone number?
Yes, it's we are in South Australia, so it's a 0883265829.
Awesome. And listen, I will introduce you to Meredith. I think there's some overlap with what you're doing, what she's doing. I'm really excited to watch this year for you. I'm excited for your new website. I'm excited to be part of. We love Adelaide, as I say, South Australia. I'm excited to watch you grow and support people. Fantastic to talk to you today. It's honestly been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much, Cassie Day, The Carer's Place.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I love a good conversation. It's great.
A good chat. Thanks, Cassie.
Thanks. Bye.
Awesome.
Thank you. That was fun.
I could
talk forever.
No.
I don't know if you can tell.
I really would love to watch what you are talking about from that community of that family or the care of the I just think that's super important. I've been pushing it on my team. We wanted to trial it out of Ballina with the circles, the community circles that Meredith is talking about. I've had a little bit of pushback from my team up there just because I'm asking them to do a few other things as well. But I'm really keen to see how our experience goes. I'm really keen that we can revisit this potentially in 6 months' time or something like that to see how you're going. But it's super important.
Oh no, it'd be great. I've just sent out a letter of offer to a person that I have hired or about to hire as the practice lead for that, because I've learnt lessons that I don't need to do everything. I can actually employ people who probably have more experience and skills than me to do the things that I have a vision of.
Yeah.
So,
I know. Look, I it's funny given you say, I've never been shy of delegating. I've been pretty good at it my entire life, and that's to say. I think you do a magnificent job. And yes, there's only so much you can spread yourself thinly. So
I'm letting go of that
and hire more people.
Oh, exactly. And I've held on to the reins for a really long time. Really probably to build a very solid foundation, but it's time to move and grow now.
And Cassie, it's frustrating. We've had a couple of people that have dropped the ball on us recently, and you go, how did this happen? But we're all human. They're human. They've got it's fine. We want everyone to be at the exceptional standards, but we have to.
But we're standing up every day and trying to make a difference, because it's bigger than us, so much bigger than us.
Isn't it just awesome? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed listening to Rock Solid People. For more interviews, stay tuned.